Welcome to Ladysmith Museum.
So can you tell me a little bit about the museum that you have here?
Well, first of all, we're in our 6th years. We've been open for 5 years. We're run by volunteers. And one of the things that sets us apart, with a name like Ladysmith, I thought it would be a good idea to focus on ladies of Ladysmith, or the women's lives. We've got about 7 areas in total. Now, one room focuses on the logging and the other one and the mining. The second one is more to do with the trains, because trains have been very important to ship the miners to the mine, and of course with the logging coming in, all the trees. There's a room, a big room, that is subdivided in an area of a store, and the store more or less represents the 2 big important stores in Ladysmith. Also in that same room we've got a story wall. The story wall tells all sorts of stories about Ladysmith. And another room there that talks about what do we do after work, like sports, music making. Well, I think one of my favorites really is this miniature Victorian home that was made by a lady in her 70s. It ties in with this whole thing again about women's and not being often able to do what they wanted to do. This was a lady that wanted to be an architect when she grew up, but of course there was no way of doing that because she had to get married and have children, etc. So after her husband passed away, she was in her 70s, she decided like, hey, I can do something. So she picked up some books from the library on Victorian miniature homes and she started working away. One of the examples she donated to the museum. She even did her own electrical work. And she gave us the schematics with these tiny, tiny little lamps, how it all works together. There are items in here that 80% of them, or maybe even 90%, are all handmade by her. This is one of the 2 original 49th parallel markers. And as Ladysmith is right on the 49th parallel, that big east-west line that divides Canada from the United States, we have 2 of them. However, in 1976, they were cut down by the highway department because it was no longer necessary, and they just cut them up and left them there. This one here is after work, I called it, because all the stuff that goes on in people's lives, a lot of it is after work. He made up a manifesto which he called the Declaration of Economic Warfare on the Government of Canada. He was involved in growing mushrooms and not necessarily the ones that you put on your plate. He was investigated by the US Bureau of Drugs and Narcotics. He was hauled into court at one point and then he disappeared. Joseph Myers was one of those labor martyrs. He's buried in Ladysmith Cemetery. Every year around his birthday there still is a procession going down to the graveyard and celebrating the life of the Unions and this martyr that we have. These are stamping hammers, and what they were used, they're very heavy by one thing, so for most people they wouldn't even be able to lift them. But once a logger is in the forest and cuts down a tree, he just bangs this on the end of it.
Wow, that's quite the cash register. It's pretty ornate, eh?
It's pretty nice. But this is the original one from the night store. It was the only thing that basically survived the fire when the store burned down. All of the cash registers had marble there, because when people came in with their coins at that time, they would tap it on here and they would hear if it was a real coin or not.
They had counterfeit?
Yep.
Counterfeit coins?
Yep. This particular counter, it was original to the Ladysmith Trading Company. Even still has a list of people that owe them money.
So you also have a Chamber of Horrors?
We sort of do, actually. We had a dentist, Dr. Fischer, in Ladysmith for many times, and if you talk to the older people now, who used to be kids when they had to go to the dentist, they can tell you the most horrific stories about what they had to endure. This particular drill is a foot-pedaled one. I have no idea how you can keep this steady, and I don't want anybody to work on my mouth with this, but hey.
Public?
This area is open for temporary exhibits on any events or specific things that happen in the community. We'll work with anybody who has some artifacts and some ideas on their history. Now, the museum is one of the projects that they have. They're also restoring, of course, the locomotive 11. A number of people work there, and there's very many people who work in the archives on a daily basis. However, the only way to keep the museum open is by having more volunteers. And it's a wonderful place to be here because most of the people that walk in are visitors, they're excited. You get to know people from all over the world. It's a big bell.
Does it ring still? Awesome.
You can make it ring.
I like that.